Stephen Beeson, welcome to the podcast. Pleasure to have you on.
Thank
Do
you.
you mind
Good to be
giving
here.
us a bit of information about your background and a rundown?
Sure. I'm broadcasting here from San Diego, California. I am a family medicine physician, born and raised in San Diego. Went to medical school residency and undergraduate at University of California, San Diego, so a true San Diegan, and have spent much of my life in the exam room treating patients. And more recently, over the past decade, actually founded a company that uses technology to coach, train, and develop people in healthcare to advance outcomes in healthcare. And that's what I spend my time doing now in a company called Practicing Excellence.
Amazing, amazing. So we obviously spoke about practicing excellence before the podcast, but so for people that don't know the company and what you guys do, so what do you specifically do, and how do you help?
Yeah. There's a bunch of things that healthcare systems want to achieve in terms of our organization. Our healthcare organization is better for our care teams, better for our patients, better as an organization, better for the communities. And there's a domain and what we call 4 different channels of activities that allow that to happen. Number one is patient experience. So the patients come into a healthcare system, they say, man, the people here, they care about me, they listen to me, they have compassion for me, they include me in decision making, I have confidence in them, and we're really partners. And I feel like I've got advocates for my healthcare. And that's under the domain of patient experience. A really important part of quality is the experience of patients. So sometimes organizations will call us and say, hey, can you help us improve the patient experience? Because we're struggling on that domain. The second domain is team engagement. So those that are providing care would say, gosh, where I work, man, I love this place. I'm going to stay here. I would recommend this place. I will deploy my discretionary effort to help this place succeed. I will use my voice to help advocate for what we're trying to become as a healthcare system. And that's the engaged workforce. And the engaged workforce not only stays, and retention is a key part of organizational performance, but they are willing to work hard to help the organization become successful. So that team engagement is a really important part of a high-performing healthcare system. If you're amazing for patients, but you are not good for your staff, it's a non-starter for healthcare performance. So team engagement is a common thing that people come to us to help improve. The other is leadership effectiveness, meaning many of these things, patient experience and team engagement, is highly dependent upon how leaders are leading. And not only the executive team and the directors, but all the way down to the frontline managers. And having those leaders lead their people in a way so the people that they lead engage. And they say, man, I love working here. That I love working here is highly dependent upon the language, cues, and activities and the skills of their frontline leaders. So developing highly effective and consistent leaders is a part of what we do. And the fourth domain is clinical excellence, meaning if you're amazing to your team and you're amazing with your patients, but you're harming patients because you're not doing evidence-based care or safe care practices or high reliability, then you're not going to be able to render quality care, safe care, timely care for your community. So organizations will come to us and say, how can you help us with our high reliability journey or our safer care journey? So all of these, the common powering catalyst to patient experience, team engagement, leadership effectiveness, or clinical excellence is human development, developing the skills to raise the capacity of the people providing care to drive the outcome. And so that's what I did at Sharp Healthcare when I clinically grew up, is we were able to create some amazing outcomes by developing our people to raise their capacity to achieve an outcome, became really interested in the science of human development, wrote a couple of books, Practicing Excellence, another one called Engaging Physicians, and then founded a company that uses technology to build skills to drive outcomes in those 4 domains. And so organizations will raise their hand and say, we want some help with team engagement or clinical excellence, or sometimes all 4. And so that's what our company does.
Amazing. So in terms of, I guess, the journey of starting the company, what have been some of the, I guess, core lessons that you've learned across that journey?
Oh my God. This could be a 4-hour podcast with all the mistakes that I've made starting a company. Because As a physician, you don't take a course on how do you found a company, form a business plan, hire the right people, set the right targets, pursue the things that matter, develop a minimal viable product, test it, get market feedback, and rapid cycle iterate it to deliver value to drive success. I summarized it. Those are a lot of words, but basically that's a cycle of companies, succeeding and finding a market fit and growing. I would say the biggest realizations, number one, it's a lot harder than you think. A good idea to becoming a successful business is a chasm, and there's 100 things that can kill you along the way. And I didn't think of those 100 things. So I just thought, coaching people to improve their care could render organizational and clinician and patient benefit. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. People are going to buy that and we'll deploy it and we'll have success and happily ever after. So number one, it's a lot harder than you think and takes a lot longer than you think. The second thing is the critical nature of hiring the right people. Everybody can talk. They can say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I've done that. And, they talk up a big game, but getting really intentional references that these people can do what they say they can do, and hiring the right people with the right skills and mindset and culture fitting attributes to allow you to power the innovation of the company, I think is critical. And the third is sticking to what you do and who you are. For example, when we first began as a company, we had a principal focus on coaching physicians on evidence-based behaviors to better connect with patients and to lead their teams more effectively and to collaborate with their colleagues better. And we stayed very focused on that narrow channel. And until we established that as a methodology of learning and development, once we did that for 8 or 9 years, we began to widen the aperture to nursing and additional leaders and additional staff members. But I think if we would have come out of the gate trying to go too wide instead of narrow in an area of core competency and brand identity, I think we would have failed. And I got to tell you, along the way, there's probably 5 moments where I go, we're going down. We're not going to make it. But hiring the right people, knowing who you are, and knowing and understanding and have, that it's a journey that's hard as hell. And it's grit that wins the day, and knowing that it's utter determination and an unwillingness to give up that will probably drive your success.
Yeah, for sure. And there's always going to be in the successes, there's always going to be those low times where it's like, how are you going to get through? How did you get through those times? Obviously you mentioned grit, but was there, I guess, in terms of what's driving you, what would you say that is, if you could pinpoint something?
Gosh, I would say, driven to have the company become successful, I think there's intrinsic drivers and extrinsic drivers. The extrinsic drivers are, I think, recognition that driving quantifiable improvement in healthcare is validating and worthy in my mind. Helping people deliver better care to patients, and to do that in a way that allows them to feel good and, full of pride in terms of who they are. In addition to expanding market share, making higher revenue, bringing shareholder value, and being recognized as a company that's really contributing to better healthcare. Those are all extrinsic drivers, meaning there's something outside of the world that is validating you that you're doing something worthy. That's external validation, external drivers. And those are important. But I would say the internal drivers are, I've formulated my why am I here on earth identity as, how do I help myself and my clinical colleagues, become their best and to really live the lives that they envisioned when they joined this profession in healthcare. And that's a deeply held belief system. And this company allows me to have both that intrinsic fulfillment of I'm leaning into my identity as somebody who helps and supports people to use human development to render an outcome, and and the extrinsic, meaning we have 18 case studies demonstrating that when we map human development to a goal, we can achieve the goal. So those are things that, made me feel like this is worthwhile doing. But yeah, there's some dark moments along the way. There's no doubt where, when you go and form your own company, there's no safety net. There's no, oh gosh, you failed, but you still get your paycheck. There is no safety net. And then you have to go back to your investors and your employees and your shareholders and say, I know it's a good idea, but I didn't do a good enough job leading this, and we all failed. That's a hard thing to go back to. So that creates a lot of early morning awakenings and anxiety. But then you'll get, we got some great outcomes at organization X, and you go, I remember, we're doing worthy work that's making a difference. Therefore, let's live another day and continue this journey.
Yeah, totally. I have heard that before, and people like David Goggins. It's about remembering what you've done previously and the good stuff that you're doing to help you get through those hard times, and get through those failures. And so, in terms of, I guess, functioning at your best to be able to then, because a lot of business is the personal aspect. So I like to hear from the guests, I guess, what they do to function at their best, so that their business can function at the best and get the best outcomes for the end client.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say anything particularly original here, but it's really critically important to take care of yourself, to give yourself the ability to lead your business. And that includes, regular fitness. Fitness is really good for the brain, the spirit, clarity of thinking, decompression of anxiety and worry, and a chance to, even if you have a super crappy day with a lot of headwinds at work, you go, man, at least I did something for myself today. So fitness is really important. I ran at 6 o'clock this morning. I ran about 4 miles, super slow, but ran that nonetheless. Regular sleep and nutrition, try to take care of yourself, just to give you if you compromise yourself for the sake of the business, then the business will ultimately suffer. So, I think that, inviting other people in your life that can support you, love you, that you can love them, and have a network of people that have your back and you have their back, will give you better durability as a business leader. And to also be with other business leaders, to realize that whatever worry, fear, anxiety that you've got spinning around in your brain, everybody else has the same thing. And, I was talking to a buddy of mine who does mentorship and coaching for CEOs. And he said, man, the CEOs out there, they're all on SSRIs. I mean, it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard to carry the burden of business success, particularly when you've got unstable business conditions, and healthcare is certainly that way. With the prospect in America with Medicaid cuts, so healthcare systems are saying we could be facing $100 million shortfall on our 1.5% margin, and we're trying to sell into that. So those are just some of the realities of just doing the thing of forming and leading and growing a business. And in particular, this is a healthcare vertical, but I think other businesses will have challenges as well. And there's a lot of people are uncertain about what the future is going to hold at the moment.
Yeah. So in terms of the successes amongst your clients, are you able to, I guess, talk to any of those key highlights across your journey? Any outcomes that you can recall in particular in terms of, among your clients, anything that you can kind of talk about there?
Yeah. There's a couple of different ways that we measure outcomes. When people call upon practicing excellence to say, hey, we believe that human development is a catalyst to our outcomes, and we like how you do it. Technology-based continuous microlearning that's role-specific, mapped to competencies for a specific outcome. So that's a toll booth of diligence that leaders would go through. And then once that happens, then, as I said at the beginning, they have to declare their intent. What do you want to achieve? Team engagement, clinical excellence, patient experience, leadership effectiveness. And then once we have that, then we identify how will we measure our success? Meaning, as we deploy technology-based human development to a goal, and what measures will improve? And the simplest measure is participation and using our use analytics, meaning everybody completed and got certified in a set of core competencies to achieve an outcome. That's a process measure, meaning 89% of all participants completed the learning. It's a process measure, but it's a measure. The other is a quantitative improvement, meaning, for example, if organizations say, we want to use practicing excellence to help improve patient experience, and they began the process being in the 55th percentile, then we deployed our programs mapping to patient experience skills, and then a year later, they're at the 72nd percentile. And we say the intervention was scaled skill development to every single care team member, with 89% of their people completed the program, and the pre and post measures of success took us from the 55th percentile to the 72nd percentile. Those are quantifiable improvement. And we've got, as I mentioned, we've got 18 case studies demonstrating that when you map human development to a goal, the goal manifests. The third thing is just the stories that emerge, the qualitative harvesting of how we are different now. Meaning, you get a care team member that says, gosh, I've been one of 2,000 team members that are engaging in this human development. And what I learned to say to a patient as we're finishing the clinical encounter that we're going to be with you every step of the way. And I said that to a patient. And then the patient wells up, gives me a hug, and says, I'm the best doctor she's ever had. And that felt pretty good. And I'm really grateful that I learned that skill. And now that I'm going to continue to do that skill, and I'm going to scream that one from the mountaintops for my colleagues to do it too. So that may not show up in a use analytic or in an organizational quantifiable metric, but it's a qualitative story to say the skills that we're provisioning are helping clinicians become more effective in their work, and they're rendering fulfillment in that journey. So that's how we measure outcomes. And I guarantee you, as in the spirit of founding and growing a business, if you cannot render quantifiable value and outcomes and ROI to your buyers, you don't have a business. Because there's a lot of scrutiny in terms of, we're going to spend capital to invest in something. Tell me how that something gives me multiples back of my return. So we got to reduce turnover, improve patient loyalty, all those things. But that's a really important part of the value proposition.
For sure. So talking on that, I guess the sales and marketing element, it is quite a niche, business model that you have. I don't imagine that there's a lot of competition out there doing exactly what you do, because it is very unique. How do you go about sales and marketing and presenting that value proposition?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've turned a lot of dials and assessed a lot of mechanisms to gain attention. One thing that we've noticed is that there's not a lot of people that are doing what we're doing right now, which is app-based microlearning that is role-specific, that scales across a clinical enterprise and synchronously develops everybody at the same time using drip methodology that map to a specific organizational outcome. Those are a lot of words again, but that's basically our methodology. And for example, there's they may have hospitalists and emergency medicine physicians and nurses, and we have role-specific content for each of those roles. So, but at the same time, even though there's not a lot of people that have a coach in the pocket for every single care team member, it's still it's a very crowded space in terms of gaining the attention of people who buy things. And the buyer table is more complex, meaning it's not one person who has a budget that writes a check for a thing. It's more, I got to talk to my CEO. I've got to talk to my chief medical officer. I got to talk to the chief nursing officer. I got to talk with the chief experience officer. I got to talk with the chief human resources officer. And then each of them are going to get diligence from the directors so we can come up with a decision in about a year. I mean, it's a complex buying table that's got a lot of inertia around it. And so we have done a couple of different things that have been successful. One of them is we host workshops. And the workshops are not promotional or sales in any way, but the workshops are about how do we apply human development and become a learning organization that is continuously improving to achieve an outcome. That's our thesis. Our thesis is in order to achieve an outcome, our people have to do the behaviors to achieve the outcome. For them to do the behaviors to achieve the outcome, we have to develop them from a shared source code so they do it in a way that is shown to render an impact. So we do these, and we invite, we're having one in St. Louis, we've got one coming up in New York, and we invite about 25 senior folks. And we tell the story about applying a human development strategy to improve healthcare. We just happen to have the technology to capacitate that. It's really hard to institute a human development strategy without putting people in classrooms and cohorts and capstone projects and pulling them out of clinical productivity. It's just expensive and clunky and hard to sustain and hard to scale. All of our 18 case studies are based upon about 5 minutes per week of the learners, because it's not the amount of time that you spend learning, it's what you do in terms of skill application that drives the change. So we do that. We do host the workshops. We host webinars. We have a pretty busy social media campaign. And I tour the country speaking at a variety of conferences, advocating not for practicing excellence, which is my company, but advocating for human development, driving transformative change for patients, organizations, and care team members. If they say yes to that, then we say, then we'll have another conversation to say, is practicing excellence the right fit for you to allow that to manifest, applying human development to achieve outcomes?
And workshops are, they're quite a very unique marketing sales, strategy. Because it's not directly selling them, but it's more building those relationships. So
Exactly.
definitely would work quite effectively. And so in terms of the future for practicing excellence and also yourself, what does that look like? Is there anything that you're, any key initiatives that you're doing over the next year or few years? What does it look like?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that are exciting for us. One is certainly the application of AI and using natural language processing and large database mining to be able to have personalized learning. And that's something that we're testing and looking into as we speak. We think we can take, we've got a massive data of thousands of pieces of content and in all sorts of different leadership, team collaboration, patient connectivity, safety, end of life care, just you name it, we have it. So looking at the use of AI driving the personalized learning experience, that's a channel that we're pursuing. The other is widening our aperture, meaning developing content that really maps to the biggest challenges in healthcare. And in fact, right now we're building a program on AI in healthcare that organizations that are looking and interested in raising the literacy of the use of AI among their care team members to say how is AI used in diagnostics? How is AI used in chronic disease management? How is AI used for natural language processing and note dictation and note generation? How is it used in radiology? And so looking at how's it used in patient empowerment to care for themselves? All of these different things are each going to be a coaching tip. And so we're building that program with some amazing faculty so organizations can look at practicing excellence and not just say we're going to improve patient experience or team engagement or leadership effectiveness or clinical excellence, but gosh, we could also use it and deploy AI in healthcare so everybody gets certified in the use of AI in healthcare to better, ready our organization for the 7 different vendors that we're bringing in over 2026 that are using AI, and people don't freak out about it. They've got better understanding and knowledge of how it's an incredible driver of healthcare improvement. So widening the aperture of additional content, we build about 400 pieces of content per year, enriching the technology and making it easier, more accessible, and more personalized, and some other things that if we had more time, I'd share with you. Those are the things we're working on most proximally right now.
Amazing, very exciting, and using AI to improve the overall experience and outcomes in healthcare. In terms of, I guess, coming to an end here, is there one piece of advice that you could give to yourself before starting practicing excellence?
I would say the advice I would give to myself, I would say, are you sure you want to do this? That's number one. I had no clue as to what I was in for. But in all seriousness, you have to know that you're in it for, if you're really committed to an idea that you want to bring to life, know that it's going to take you a long time. And there's going to be amazing high moments and some really rough moments. So I would tell myself to be patient, in it for the long run. And the second would be, as I referenced before, get really smart, experienced people to stand by your side, who really believe in what you're doing, who you want to hang out with, because they're going to be your other family.
Advice, Stephen. And if people want to get in touch with you and connect, where can they find you?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is just go to our website, practicingexcellence.com, and you can learn all about the company and the outcomes and our approach, and certainly you can contact us. And if there's any, my personal email is Stephen, Stephen, at practicingexcellence.com, and always happy to hear from people across the world in terms of what they're working on and what they're curious about, and learn from them, and create another friend in the world, as we say.
Amazing. Thanks for your time, Stephen. Great podcast.
You bet. Thanks, Alex.